Welcome on in. This is Culture Wars here on Morning Kickaround. Leo Messi sat down for a rare interview in which he said something that, many of us think, but it means more coming from a player of his stature, saying that Major League Soccer would benefit from loosening the purse strings and relaxing the restrictions on bringing in players, and many teams would bring in many more important players if they do so.
I mean, it's kind of funny to hear, Messi said this, considering the amount of money he's making in a league where nobody has ever, how I don't have a number in front of me, Rob, but it's not, it's not crazy to be like, well, Lionel Messi probably makes more than 28 teams entire payrolls in Major League Soccer. I mean, it's something, I'm sure it's something like that, right? He himself is getting paid handsomely, and his club has kind of been known to mess around and go around the rules just a little bit at times. And look, I'm one of those people who is very sanguine about breaking rules in Major League Soccer. People get very up in arms about this, and I definitely think that there's a fairness factor here. And if your team is following the rules and Lionel Messi and Inter Miami are not, you're going to feel aggrieved, particularly when they win things and maybe your team doesn't. But this is a league that needs rule breakers. This is a league that needs clubs that are willing to step outside the current constraints in order to force the league to respond so we can break open things and clubs can spend money at a higher level to improve the quality of MLS. And even maybe beyond that, it is never wise to restrain the ambitious people who want to actually do more. Like, how is that a good strategy for Major League Soccer to be like, no, Jorge, sorry, actually, you can only spend this much money. You can't get better. We don't want your team to be better. Stop trying to be better, Jorge Mas. What do you think you're doing here? No, that's terrible. That's a terrible idea. So Lionel Messi is right. He does. I don't know that he has a deep understanding of all of this either. Why would he? Why would he need to? Is he effectively the GM of Inter Miami? Probably, but I don't think he's sitting down with the paperwork, right? That is being handled by somebody else.
I'm not sure if this is 100% accurate, but on a cursory search, it says that Messi earns more than 21 teams' combined salaries and has a 3.7% of the total salary for the league. So to your point, it is a bit rich for him to say that, but he's not wrong. He's not wrong at all. Like, think about how many times there's been a single player dropped into a Major League Soccer team, and that one standout player has changed the fortunes of that. I'd say Jermaine Jones is one that pops into my mind. We were talking about the Revs earlier. Jermaine Jones joining the Revs made them a competitive team at the drop of the hat. He transferred to Colorado, and out of nowhere, they probably had their one or two standout seasons that they went to the playoffs and they were a contender. So bringing in higher stature players to more teams across the league will obviously improve the entertainment value and the quality of the player, but it's at the top level. But we got to keep on bringing up the basement here.
Well, so Leo's talking about. I don't think all teams have the power to sign players who they want. Limitations, rules. I think that if they were given the freedom, many more important players would come and help the growth of soccer in the United States. I mean, it's speculation, and of course, yeah. Look, people like America for a number of reasons when they come here, and one of Major League Soccer's strengths is that it does have the ability to attract players who might not otherwise consider playing in this kind of league because it's in America, right? So, of course, if teams were allowed to spend more money, they could attract more players. Maybe not like Lionel Messi, but players of a higher caliber. But I don't think that's where I have an issue with the MLS spending rules. Meaning, right now, 3 DPs, and obviously there are different approaches teams can take based on the way the rules are written at the moment. But teams can't go out and sign a big name player or two, or maybe 3. What they can't do is surround those players with players of a higher level of quality throughout their roster. Now, that's come up. It's grown. It's gotten better. We've taken steps. TAM has changed that. GAM has changed that on some level. Over the last couple of years, decade, or whatever it's been. But the idea that there need to be designations Like, you're this kind of player and you're that kind of player. And because you're that kind of player, you can't get paid more than this amount of money. Or you're this kind of player, which means you fit into this category and this is your salary range. Like, no, just get rid of all of that. Give teams, create a salary floor in order to maintain some sort of level of competitive integrity, but have a ceiling. And if you want to do a soft cap, there are ways to do a soft cap, right? Major League Baseball has a luxury tax. You go over the cap, you got to pay into a pot that gets spread out across the league. That's one way to do a soft cap. You want to, there are things you can do. It's, to me, MLS rules have always been too Byzantine, too complicated, too difficult to understand. There are super nerds and sickos who will dive into it, and more power to them. I'm glad we have them. Every sport needs them. But we need to make this more accessible for fans to understand what their clubs can do when they want to improve their side. And we should empower clubs. Major League Soccer should empower clubs to go and sign players as they see fit within their budget. I'm not saying like get rid of budget completely. That may be a recipe for disaster, and it would certainly upend competitive integrity or the parity that has been so part of MLS's identity for the last 30 years. But do something to release this idea that you have to sign players in specific categories. That's too much.
Yeah, the categorization really limits it. Like, what if you're one kind of player and then you have rapid improvement and you're boxed into that certain thing? MLS used to have the bad reputation of kind of like trapping players, and they wouldn't be able to leave the league once they were in there, and they couldn't be able to leave freely. But also, I think that if those categorizations are removed, I think that would benefit the domestic American player, because there's all these sort of different kind of categories and what they cost of different things. It kind of makes aspirational homegrown players, I think it makes it a little bit more difficult.
Well, so that may be true. Absolutely. You're kind of restricting the way that clubs can operate within those areas. Obviously, there's incentives to bring through academy players under the current system because they cost less, right? That's a thing that you can say, well, they're incentivizing clubs to develop their own players but that's true around the world, regardless of the salary budget rules that exist in any given place. I want to address one of these from KY. Parity is a red herring. Now, I think that goes just a touch too far. Like, I think that just goes a tiny bit too far, but it's not wrong to say that parity is just a mechanism for controlling costs on some level, that it's an excuse for Major League Soccer. Like, hey, we want to maintain parity. We want our teams to all feel like they have a chance to win the championship, and we don't want to become Spain or some of these places where spending wins the title every year. We want to be like the NFL, right? The NFL is the model. We talked about this recently. The NFL is the model, and the model is everybody's got some sort of chance. But at the same time, obviously, from a management perspective, from an owner perspective, from a spending perspective, if you say, well, we got to maintain parity, then that justifies your salary budget rules, because now everybody has to operate within the same constraints, because that's how we maintain this idea that nobody is too much better than anybody else.
But at the same time, that also restricts greatness.
It does. Of course it does. Exactly. That's the trade-off you're making. And I don't know if it's worth it anymore, right? I don't know if it's worth it anymore for the league to continue to focus on this idea that parity necessitates salary restraint, which, obviously restrains greatness. But there are other ways to sort of introduce parity, right? There are other ways to or maintain some level of parity, even as you are restricting clubs less, especially the ambitious ones, from spending more of what they want to spend. Playoffs are parity creating environments. Upsets happen. Now, maybe they won't happen all the time, but there is chaos over a 90-minute soccer match, right? There is variability in a 90-minute soccer match that doesn't exist over the course of a full season. And if you're saying, well, we're determining our champion based on a full season of matches, and that's it, that's how we determine our champion, then the team that spends the most is probably going to win more often than not. And therefore, the idea of parity kind of goes out the window. But if you're saying, like, we're going to play this number of games, then we're going to have a playoff tournament, it's going to be either knockout or best of 3 or whatever, but we're introducing variability here, you're going to have upsets. You're going to have the Giants beating the Patriots. Like, you're going to still have the opportunity for clubs that don't feel as ambitious or don't spend as much money to succeed. So, and which is, I'm fine with playoffs. So again, there's reasons to kind of try to manipulate this and massage this without restricting the ability of clubs who are ambitious from finding a way to be better.
Yeah, and I mean, we're getting some suggestions in the chat here. There's a lot of different people suggesting different kinds of caps. So if you, Jason, suggest different caps, so there is people already pouring lots of thought and ideas into what Messi's talking about. So, like I said, he's not really saying anything groundbreaking here, but just kind of voicing what many people think out there already. Will that be amongst the changes? MLS has been kind of foreshadowing that, there's a looming changes coming to roster makeup in addition to possible calendar stuff. Is this part of it? I mean, I would love for there to be, I mean, what right now we got 3, 4, 5 really, really top players and then good players for a full squad, but the depth isn't there. So like a team like Columbus that gets some of their good players banged up or transferred out, they become a shell of it. But if you change those spending habits, I feel like the squads overall could improve. And then if you still have VPs, then you could still have stars, but a better squad.
So there are a couple of things, angles to attack this from. One of them is, what's the point? Like, why do you want the teams to be better? No, we have to start there. We have to start basic. Okay. What's the point of teams getting better? Now, if your argument is that better soccer attracts more fans, then that's why you do it. That's why you do it.
Because I mean, there's bazillion soccer fans in America, just not as many MLS fans.
Well, okay, there's also maybe an argument that those soccer fans wouldn't care even if the league was much better, even if the players were better. Because they're not tuned to that frequency. They're tuned to European football or Mexican soccer or whatever it is. They're just not going to pay attention. Like, if you don't think you can get those fans, then it's not worth it to spend a bunch more money on your salaries in a league where revenues have not yet gotten to the point where it's sort of, the argument is out the window that you shouldn't spend more money, because this is also important that, how many teams are profitable in Major League Soccer, right? Is that a thing that we should care about when we talk about this? When Messi brings up this argument, but then again, sports inherently are money losers in a lot of places. And, if you are chasing the NFL, well, good luck. Nobody's going to get to that level, those kind of things. So again, if your argument is better soccer equals more fans, then that's why you do it. Now, if you think that being better on the field, and especially your top level teams being better on the field, makes you look better in tournaments like CONCACAF Champions Cup, or the thing that has now entered the picture, the Club World Cup, well, then do that, right? Do that because it's just a matter of being competitive and winning and all those things. And you could probably just be as reductive as, if clubs want to spend money, who should stop them? Why should you stop them from spending money if they want to spend money? But that's not really how sports business works, particularly when you're talking about a single entity league like Major League Soccer.
Are they scared of falling behind? Or I know there's a lot of inherent fear of the NASL thing, rampant spending, overspending, just crashing and burning, or some teams just afraid of being left behind. So they want to, pull their shirt back, so to speak, and not let them just jet ahead, not become the Dodgers.
That's the thing. But even the Dodgers are not going to win every World Series. But of course, the fear is that you end up with a league where you do have one or two teams potentially just trading the title back and forth. And is that something that is going to be attracted to American sports fans? Right? Soccer fans may be able to make their peace with it if you have been paying attention to soccer for a long time, or you appreciate what Barcelona, Real Madrid are in Spain or whatever. But I definitely think that there is a reasonable fear. Again, it might be just excuses. It may be the red herring that KY was talking about earlier with parity, but there's at least some reason to be concerned that in a country where soccer is still trying to prove itself as a viable professional sporting enterprise and as a culturally important, that if you suddenly let one or two teams zoom off and win all the titles, that a lot of these places will stop caring about the game, because Americans will find it harder to make peace with their higher level in the hierarchy. Right? Again, I'll bring this to me. Fulham fan decided to support Fulham. You know what? I have to make peace with the fact that Fulham's not going to win a Premier League title, probably ever, and unless something dramatically changes. But I'm also somebody who can appreciate what that is and the context of where Fulham is in the Premier League and what other things Fulham can play for. are casual American soccer fans, American sports fans, when Sporting Kansas City can no longer compete because LAFC is winning every title or New York is winning every title, are they going to be like, yep, I'm totally going out to the stadium every day, every match day to support my team. And we're fighting for whatever, the US Open Cup this year, and that's enough for me. Is that I don't know the answer to that question.
I don't think that's totally lost on American sports fans because I mean, think about how many college teams in any sport really going into the season. You have just about no shot of winning. Until the last like 2 years, who would have thought that Indiana would have a chance of winning a Big Ten, or let alone be in the national
Sure.
conversation?
Sure.
So,
But
like,
what
there's
had
team
what had to change for that to happen, right?
drastic changes. That's a fair point. A
Drastic
bad
change had to
example of my
change.
point. Bad example of my point. But there is plenty of teams that 99% of their heart they know that they're just trying to beat the rival, be above 500, or just have a couple good days out
I
at
think the
the stadium.
concern also has to be that if you decide to do this, right? If you take the shackles off, if you say go spend. Now, obviously, again, there are different ways to approach it. It's not like free for all. But even if you said, okay, your salary budget is now 50 million or 40 million or whatever we think of as like the maximum that makes sense for an MLS team right now. If you do that, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. You can't do it and then say, oh, wait a second. This one team outspent everybody by 4. We can't 4 times. We can't let that happen anymore because they're going to dominate. They're going to attract all the best players. And you have cities that have financial advantages that also have geographic advantages. Right? One of the reasons parity is a thing is because it helps a team like Columbus or Kansas City or Dallas compete with LA and New York. Because if you think about it, top level foreign players, they know like 3 cities in America, or they are willing to like those are the places they really want to play. You want to play in Miami, you want to play in New York, you want to play in LA, generally speaking.
That's
That
why Muller's
I
so weird in Vancouver.
Well, but good for him, right? For being open-minded. Vancouver's an amazing place. Definitely players should consider those places, and maybe it's on those teams to figure out how to make themselves attractive. But there's an advantage to being in LA. There's an advantage to being in Miami. So if you then say, well, those teams who already have a baked-in advantage are now making more money than anybody else and have owners who are willing to spend more than anybody else, then you just risk your league being dominated by those teams. And again, like it in an abstract, it's kind of hard to get a grasp on how we would feel about it if that was the case. If we would be bored, or if American soccer fans would tune out, or to the flip side, the other argument, which is probably just as legitimate, we would have great teams and people want to see great teams that would make the league more attractive.
Yeah, I mean, talking about great teams, I mean, we're talking about a duopoly in Spain. There's the Barcelona Real Madrid thing. It's pretty obvious. Outside of that, sometimes the other Madrid team, Atletico Madrid, sometimes they get in the mix there, but that's still compelling. I mean, but a lot of the times those Spanish fans, like they have their own team, but in the background, they're one of those two teams that they
But
support.
okay,
It's
the other
almost like a
part of
separate
this
competition.
the other part of this, and we're just going on and on and on, and it's but the other part of this I think is fascinating from my perspective is that a lot of these places, obviously there's the cultural weight that the club carries within the city, within the town, within the region, which is sort of like I would compare it to maybe college sports or college football here in the US. MLS teams don't have that cultural weight. We want to see them build it. We want to see them become that important. Obviously, they're competing for that identity with the other pro sports teams that exist in this country in those major markets, right? That's where MLS is. Obviously, you can have smaller towns where soccer has a better chance of kind of rising above. But if you are an MLS team and you're competing with an NFL team or an NBA team or a Major League Baseball team for attention, it's really hard to become the heartbeat of the city in the same way that a team in Spain or a team in England or a team in Germany might be for that particular town. And those fans, not only are they attached to those teams in a way that means no matter what happens, we're going out and supporting them. Take Schalke, for example. 60,000 people show up every week. They're playing in the second division in Germany. It also means that you make peace with the identity of your team as long as they're doing things, quote unquote, the right way. As long as you don't feel like you're being exploited by the ownership, by the leadership, by whoever, you can make peace with the identity. Like, oh, we're a team that just develops local players. That's who we are. We may never win a title, but I'm good with that. I like the fact that my team is developing local players who come through and show up for my first team. And then even if they go on one day to play at Real Madrid or Barcelona, at least I got to see them play for my guys. that identity, that the ability to grow those kind of identities is something I really want for American soccer. But I think there's danger, obviously, in there of the gap between trying to start that and when it actually kicks in, where people still show up 20, 25,000 strong to support a team that, again, has suddenly been, quote unquote, relegated to not ever being a champion.
Leo Messi sparking some American soccer debate here on Morning Kickaround. You love to see it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. I think, to your point, Jason, we could go, endlessly on this topic. But
I mean, we didn't get any members today, unfortunately. So we shouldn't. I could go do more. This could be an incredible debate, but we didn't get to the goal. So join the Discord, become a member, an ultra after the fact, and we'll get into it. We'll chop it up.
yeah, we got bonus content on the channel. So if you are an MK Ultra, you can get one of our fellow MK Ultras post game report on the scene in Cincinnati. Good, concise report from one of our very first Ultras, Luke Zagorski. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Plenty of conversation going on. And we will check out the final round 1, game 1 tonight. We'll be through there. Friday, we got a great guest lined up. We can finally look at the second games of this first round. The USL playoffs are in our midst. We'll dig into that a little bit more. Next week, we got some great stuff lined up there. Well, so if you haven't subscribed yet, hit subscribe. If you'd like to become an MK Ultra, and if not, tell your family, friends, your pets, and your acquaintances about Morning Kickaround and tune in. So until Friday, everybody, please enjoy your soccer.